These are some of the most resonant works of art coming out of the Middle East today. Blatant messages, cutting perspectives, and direct documentation. They are also produced by some of the strongest, unfiltered voices. Women from Iran and the Arab world.
We are human beings, that we have stories to tell, that we're multi-layered and complex. We're not all terrorists, we're not crazy, we're not all extremists, and things are not as they seem.
In She Who Tells a Story, now on view at the Museum of Fine Arts, women like Bushra al-Mutawakkil from Yemen have plenty to say and, more importantly, the freedom in which to express it. In her series Mother-Daughter Doll, we see al-Mutawakkil and her eldest daughter methodically disappear behind their hijabs until they are no more.
Yemen is already a very conservative country, and just in the past 10 years it's become even more conservative with the spread of different and more extreme forms of Islam, and it's literally become layers and layers of covering. I found that this had nothing to do with Islam, that it was more of an expression of some kind of, political view of religion and also a form of control.
What Westerners should try to see, she says, is what lies beneath.
And so many women who are extraordinary and strong, doctors, lawyers, artists, philosophers, they wear the veil.
In Cairo, nearly a decade before the Arab Spring, Rana Nepp surreptitiously photographed subway travelers in her series, The Metro.
When I was watching people and I was watching the space, I became very obsessed by how the space made people, how it made them so absorbed and so kind of out of their bodies in a way.
Nemp is quick to point out she photographed both men and women and has mixed opinions of the MFA selecting only the latter.
This specific collection tells me something about being really keen on negating that stereotype of women in the United States, and I think that's really good. I'm not sure if I would do it, I'd do it the same way.
With an even more disparate vantage point, Rania Matar, who lives in the Boston area, returned to her native Lebanon for her series A Girl and Her Room, in which she photographs young women whose identities are echoed in their bedrooms.
They decide what they want to put on the wall. They're surrounding themselves with all these things they're going through and what they're choosing to be, At some point, though, I realized that 30 years earlier, I was the exact as those girls, the exact same thing. But I was growing up in Lebanon and with the backdrop of a civil war, and I was still the same young woman.
Lebanon, Matar also notes, is among the most Western countries of those featured in the show, which gives her work a mystifying nuance.
In Lebanon, it's important to note that there are a lot of religions. It is a Muslim country, but it's also a Christian country and a Jewish country. So it offers a lot of ambiguity there as well. And I like that, like some of these girls on the wall, you cannot tell if they're Muslim or Christian, and I probably won't tell you.
She Who Tells a Story quickly presents volumes of them.
And Jared Bowen is here. Well, Jared, in the case of the Yemeni artists, for instance, with the women disappearing behind the hijabs, how is that liberating? Because that is a stereotype that we have here in America about them walking around with these veils and they're faceless and nameless, and who would know if they were a doctor or an artist or whatever they were?
Well, I think you have to see, you watch the progression of her work to understand where she's coming from. And what's interesting is that, first of all, she told me that she was afraid when she exhibited this work in Yemen, which she says remains very, very conservative. But people embraced it. There were extremists who didn't like the work. But her work shows that, in the first picture, she's comfortable being in that garb. That is traditional. That's part of society. But the way society outside, in Yemen has evolved, they're really draping these women. They're cloaked. It's become oppressive clothing.
And what about the Egyptian woman? I was a little unclear what she was upset about. She thought that the exhibit should have included men and women?
Well, this is interesting because really the focus of this show is on sort of upending the stereotype that women don't have these advantages. And you see that in the show, that's not the case. Here you have this Egyptian woman who can photograph and be a documentarian or journalist working in the Egyptian subway, but she's also saying that that's not really the full story. So she's coming from it from the vantage point standpoint of this is what I know, that this is what life is like. Life is not like what you're reading in the New York Times in America, or having these stereotypes. You know, we are progressive. We have been able to move across borders, and she just hasn't seen that illustrated at the MFA. But in the catalog, the curator addresses that herself, that the exhibit could be viewed as a stereotype, but because they're breaking it down into stories, you get these individual notions that you realize that these women do have this strength.
So what was the revelation out of this for you?
Well, I think it really was that and you know, I have a very dear friend who lives in the Middle East, and I've been there, and even being there, we still come across with this notion that women don't have these rights and these opportunities, when really they do, and they're working.
Oh yeah. You can't get a driver's license in some of these countries.
Yeah, well, but
you can't work out of the home in some.
But that's also the case here in America, where women are still, you know, women still don't have certain.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you, but it's worse there.
But it is worse. But there's still a lot of opportunity, and that's what this show shows. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but there's a lot more openness, and I think that we could have realized.
All right, Jared Bowen, thanks. Looks good. And that is it for Greater Boston. Tomorrow night, we'll bring you reaction to Frontline's documentary League of Denial, and we'll hear from 2 former pro athletes now teaming up to increase awareness about concussion risks. Plus, amid a citywide school bus driver strike, we'll compare the Boston mayoral candidates' education agendas. We'll have that and more tomorrow. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.